Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Ramachandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare. Jai. Thank you everyone for joining. So this is 23rd chapter.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krita sadhya bhavet sadhya bhavasa sadha naviva nitya sadasya bhavasya prakatim hirdi sadhyatam.
What's the chapter?
22nd chapter and verse 105.
Madhya-lila.
Madhya-lila. One transcendental devotional service by which love for Krishna is attained is executed by the senses. It is called sadhana bhakti, or the regulative discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of the devotional service in practice. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu because living entities are minute, atomic parts and parcels of the Lord. Devotional service is already present within them in a dormant condition. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtan, hearing and chanting. When a man is sleeping, he can be awakened by sound vibration. Therefore, every conditioned soul should be given the chance to hear the Hare Krishna mantra chanted by a pure Vaishnava. One who hears the Hare Krishna mantra thus vibrated is awakened to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's mind gradually becomes purified, as stated by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Cheto Drapana Marjanam. When the mind is purified, the senses are also purified. Instead of using the senses for sense gratification, the awakened devotee employs the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the process by which dormant love for Krishna is awakened. Shradavandi kriya tara swarupa lakshana tatashta lakshane upajaya premadhana. The spiritual activities of hearing, chanting, remembering, and so forth are the natural characteristics of devotional service. The marginal characteristic is that it awakens pure love for Krishna. Nitya siddha Krishna preme sadha kabunoi shradavani chutashite kariya udoy. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, the living entity naturally awakens. Om Agyantari Nandasyam Gyana Shala Sharakaya Chakshonamhinita Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, kindly opened my darkened eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances to His lotus feet. Thank you, Prabhupada. So, I was planning to read another purport. Maybe you can read it after, but this small portion, like the seemingly small portion of this first purport, or the purport to the first verse that I read, is, for me, it's so packed with many different points that we can all give something from ourselves to extrapolate and go deeper. And I immediately remember the Sankirtan that we did yesterday, and this whole process of hearing and chanting, how dynamic it is, how not bound to any physical structure or physical organization or anything from the material world. And Prabhupada, he gives in the middle, he gives this really nice analogy that from the beginning of my journey in Krishna consciousness really caught my attention, is the awakening state versus the sleeping state of the spirit soul. Is just like a dream. We all are dreaming, either in the awakened state or in the sleeping state, without spiritual knowledge, spiritual realization. And to awake from that dreaming unconscious state, it's very simple actually. And Prabhupada, to describe how it happens, he gives this comparison to a person that sleeps. And I actually heard it from like some other psychologists or many people. It's like scientifically admitted that that's the only sense that actually, if you want to awake someone, why we set up an alarm clock through a sound, because that's the only sense that actually works during sleep. And seemingly during this sleep of the soul and the material existence, to awaken the soul from this slumber of sleeping in the sleeping state in the material condition, there needs to be a particular sound, not sound that originates here in the material world, but a spiritual sound. And yes, this sound awakens the soul to its real eternal propensity as a spiritual soul, spiritual living entity. If we think about it for a second, what are we as spirit souls, right? As spiritual living entities, what are we doing in the material world? What are we doing here? There's nothing that actually relates to our existence as a spiritual being, regardless of what we do in the spiritual existence or where we are originating from. There is a certain spiritual nature which is distinctly different from anything material. Here, everything is material. A spiritual entity. There's nothing material that can attract a spiritual being. So this is a very weird situation, a very disturbing situation, and every single living entity, just like these few verses that speak of the all-inclusiveness of the spiritual practice, spiritual potency, right? Prabhupada, the translation of the verse, are actually the eternal devotion is the potentiality. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service in practice. For me, what it means is that everyone in potential has the propensity to practice devotional service. It's not that only for a particular living entity or only for a particular race or gender in the particular living entity or particular planet or universe. Even it's of every single atom in the creation. It has the potential to start its practice, and by the mercy of the pure devotee, it can be awakened, like Prabhupada says here. When a man is sleeping, can be awakened by the sound vibration. Therefore, every conditioned soul should be given the chance to hear the Hare Krishna mantra chanted by pure Vaishnava. So who is that? Who is that pure Vaishnava? Of course, we know for certain, without any guessing, Srila Prabhupada is a pure Vaishnava. But it's not that a pure Vaishnava he is alone without any other pure Vaishnavas. There are innumerable. First of all, there are innumerable pure Vaishnavas in the spiritual world, right? And when the pure devotee comes, just like Krishna, when he comes with the entourage of the whole army of other pure devotees, and he turns other conditioned souls here into pure Vaishnavas too. So I did like a research on this term when Prabhupada actually uses the term pure devotee, pure Vaishnava, and there are many varieties of answers. And sometimes it's, we know like the Uttama Adhikari or the avatar comes from the spiritual world, like Jesus Christ or Prophet Muhammad, who establishes religious principles on behalf of God, of Krishna. But at the same time, there many times Prabhupada expresses the pure devotee as someone who follows the pure devotee, someone who chants on behalf of the pure devotee, someone who even he might be chanting with like Namabas offensively, but he aware of himself, that he's chanting offensively, or he aware of the offenses, or he's trying to mitigate the offenses. So there are many varieties. Why, from my understanding, why there are so many varieties? So the cult of devotional service would not stop with this block that I'm not a pure devotee. Like I remember I stopped. I was distributing a book in Montreal at Concordia, and I stopped this person who happened to consider himself be part of the Orthodox Christian tradition. Many Greeks, right, especially where I live there, Park Extension, and he told me that he is Orthodox Christian, and I immediately asked him, "Oh, so what is your favorite thing about the teachings of Lord Jesus Christ?" And he said, "Well, love your enemy. We need it in the world so much." And I told him, "Yes, it's so high. Like, how do you apply it in your own life?" And he laughed, and just before he went already turning his back, he told me, "Oh, that is for Jesus. It's like, it's really, that's Jesus. He knows how to do it the best. I'm just, I'm humbly following." So this is not like the Hare Krishna movement is not about just reading the books or hearing the instructions. It's about applying the instructions and applying the life of the pure devotee and other pure devotees into our own life. Why? Because like this verse that we read at the end, the pure love of Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of the living entity. It is not something to be gained from other sources. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, the living entity naturally awakens. We are already all of us, we descended from the spiritual world. In one sense, we all are sort of avatars. But the difference between our so-called pastimes here in the material world and pastimes of souls who come here to liberate others is that we are still in this slumber. So we need to take up to the practice that these pure devotees they're trying to convey. And the practice, like Prabhupada gives here a very thick hint, is begins from hearing and chanting. Hearing and chanting. Everyone can hear, even the trees, right? They can hear, even the ants. But Prabhupada says, especially human beings, they have the ability not just to hear, but they can adhere. They can follow up whatever they hear. They can take up to the instructions. They can progress very fast. Sometimes, like there are examples of, like there is example of a dog, right? Sevananda Sena, dog or puppy that he advanced even faster than his owner, maybe. I'm not sure. He went back to God faster than his owner. But we as human beings, we can, fellow human beings, we can practice by helping others to execute these basic principles of Krishna consciousness by our self-hearing and chanting to others, and advance very, very fast like that on the path of devotional service. I remember, I think Malini Mataji, she made the point a few days ago that what the scholars in different universities might learn from studying the Vedic literatures, or even the same books that we study here, a new bhakta, a new practitioner of Krishna consciousness, he can accomplish that and much more in just a few weeks, or I would say even in a day of just going out and executing in practice this Krishna consciousness. Because it's just like electricity. You cannot feel the electricity if you just, you can study how the electricity works and just be careful not to kill yourself when you actually come to work with electricity. But you will never feel the electricity if you will not, connect the two, how do you call them? You connect the computer to the socket to the energy, and you receive the electricity, so you will never experience that. So similarly, if we only take the books but we don't connect them, if we connect them, the advancement is very fast, just like electricity. We don't wait for the computer to start charging, whatever. Immediately it happens. So similarly, immediately when someone takes to the most basic practice of the Hare Krishna movement, the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. He's electricized, or Prabhupada says something sometimes Krishnized. But and to achieve that, there's no other way than applying that, applying this principle of chanting, and make others chanting too. It's very very Krishnizing process. In fact, it's so like Prabhupada says, Krishnizing or something like that. That even liberation, it's an insignificant aspiration for a devotee when he experiences the bliss of the joyfulness of giving this Mahamantra to others. Kunti, she prays that even more than liberation, what gives me joy is to make others chant. It's an F chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I will read this first again. Well, you can see anything or share, you're welcome to do so. When transcendental devotional service by which love for Krishna is attained, is executed by the senses, is called sadhana bhakti, or the regulative discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service in practice.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question. Hearing and chanting is stressed so much. And sometimes I'm thinking, hearing and chanting means chanting, putting energy towards chanting attentively, 16 rounds at least, and then reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And it works for me. But also, like, we and I can get so busy doing so many things. And in a sense, they can be all connected to Krishna and all in service to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. And hearing and chanting also can mean like chanting, glorifying the Lord for others to hear.
Yeah.
So there's so many aspects. And sometimes I wonder, like the busyness of it, because what can we really do? And how much, like Srila Prabhupada showed the example of being completely engaged in so many ways in administration. He showed an example of being managing, administration, accounting, and counseling, and he was doing so many services, and his example is for us to follow for sure. But I'm always wondering, like, can that busyness, even in the service of Krishna, hinder the hearing and chanting?
If we can hamper the
Basic.
hearing and chanting, like in terms of like the practice, sadhana bhakti.
Yeah, because I can see how it's purifying too.
Mm-hmm.
It's very purifying. It purified a lot of Raja and Tamas out of our system. Even, I don't know in the cosmic level if it does much, but at least it is purifying.
Yeah, well, that's the purpose of the sadhana, right? To bring us to some, like, to adjust our lifestyle to more goodness, to purify it from the lobha, kama, greed and lust, and allow the mind to focus on the real part of the sadhana, to hear and chant.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line that actually I was thought about touching it. I don't know if I did, but I think it relates to what you were saying. When the mind is purified, the senses are also purified. Instead of using the senses for sense gratification, the awakened devotee employs the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the process by which dormant love for Krishna is awakened. As soon as we purify the mind a little bit, then there are many varieties of activities that can be utilized in the discharge of this position of a servant of Krishna. Like I think here Govinda was mentioning, who was that, Nalini Kanta? He was running for some position in Phoenix, in Arizona, the mayor. And Balavanta here in Atlanta, he was running.
And Amarendra ran for mayor of Gainesville, Florida. So there was a Prabhupada authorized the starting of the In God We Trust political party. in God we trust political party.
Yeah, so many things that can be dovetailed. And I remember I was reading this one class, and Prabhupada was citing his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Bhaktisiddhanta was saying that the more we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more our ability to turn karma into bhakti will be exhibited. Unopposed to material existence, the more we advance materially, the more the karma is just catching us by the throat. And Prabhupada, he says that in connection to the airplanes, like they were in London or something like that. And in London you have, 6 airports? And because you have so many airports, then people have to commute so much. They have to make their, make sure the system has to make sure that someone uses the airplanes, the technology, and then the karma turns into ugra karma, into hellish work, or overworking, to translate it exactly. But in the body, you can take that karma and apply a purified mind and use that in devotional service and bring actually joy not just to his life, but to lives of others who too are using these tools, because they see how we're using them, and they can imitate it to a certain extent, right? Like now it's very popular, the vegan vegetarian idea, right? In the like some awards in Hollywood, they decided, okay, we're not going to have any animal products, so they don't know what's the cause of that necessarily, but they imitate that from the Hare Krishna movement. Prabhupada, he was the first one to set up a global chain of vegetarian restaurants. There was nothing like that happening before. So somehow these concepts, we give them out, and we don't know how they're gonna, who's gonna get them, or who's gonna decide that it suits him and he wants to share it with others. But we do it, and slowly, the condition of the world will be more conducive for like the general mass to take to the real practice, the Shravanam, the real Shravanam and Kirtanam and Archanam. Prabhupada mentions here maybe deity worship. No, that's not.
Well, Prabhupada emphasizes often that if we're engaged in the other processes, even if we're engaged in worshiping Radha Krishna, that the real test is it increasing our enthusiasm for Shravanam Kirtan. Yeah. Otherwise, he said, even church worship, even if it's Radha Krishna worship, are we becoming dry? So that those are the foundational practices. I really liked how you said during your class. Even the trees, the plants and animals can hear, but in human form we can adhere. And seems to me in relation, to your question, Melanie, like that's why Prabhupada gave us at least the minimum hearing and chanting sadhana. That because the tendency is there, it's like, well, I'm doing devotional service. My job, well, it's devotional service. And then we can get, okay, but are we in the name of bhakti, are we really just getting more involved in karma, or are we really dovetailing karma into bhakti? And so Prabhupada, okay, if I'm not chanting my minimum number of rounds per day, spending at least some minimum sadhana on hearing and chanting, so then it's kind of like a safeguard that we don't get carried away. Oh, there's so much to do for service, and then if we're not doing enough hearing and chanting, whatever we're doing, it's not really service. There's Dharmasvanusti tapum sam dishvaksenika tasya no paniya diratim shrama evi kevalam, that we can, whatever dharma we perform according to our different positions, if it does not provoke, inspire attraction for kata, for Krishna kata, for hearing and chanting, then shrama evahi kevalam, it is certainly, without any doubt, surely a waste of time. A waste of time. So that's the test. And you know, I think a gauge is, because Prabhupada says, like, in your dear service, and whenever you have a few minutes, read Bhagavad Gita, read Bhagavatam, chant an extra round. And okay, and then it's like, if I have a few minutes, okay, am I inspired for Shravanam Kirtanam, or inspired for some other kata, as Prabhu described, that other kata that's just part of this material realm. So, you know, my understanding is like we want to come to the point where I'm completely joyful and peaceful and content and fulfilled to directly do hearing and chanting all the time. 24 hours a day, Caitanya Siddhari. And then from that platform, like Prabhupada's on that platform, okay, then our service might involve management and accounting, and that's also hearing and chanting if that's really our consciousness. So I know that's what comes to me, like, you know, at least to have some minimum sadhana to prevent our rationalizing mind to go below any particular certain level in the name of, like, so much serving, there's no time to read Bhagavad Gita this year, or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's sadhana for so many things too. Like, I remember I read this one letter to Raya Ram once, the editor of the Back to God magazine in Prabhupada. He was transcendently disturbed by Rairam's disturbance, that Rairam is feeling down and he doesn't know how to do service. And Prabhupada told him, he asked him, if you go to Sankirtan, he told him, well, you have to go on Sankirtan at least 1 hour a day, right? But then I was thinking, well, I mean, there's so many devotees in many different circumstances, not everyone that can go on Sankirtan 1 hour a day. So I was more digging into what is that Sankirtan really in essence. And one of the letters that I found, Prabhupada, he was saying Sankirtan means you explain this philosophy to others. So I think, you know, everyone can find someone to do it, either to someone he lives with, or someone at work. Like, if someone, like, let's say if someone's excuse is like he has to work for 8 hours a day, so I mean, you can catch someone there at work and tell him something about Krishna, and all the time piled together telling this person about Krishna and that person about Krishna.
We have people sitting in this room who are practicing Krishna consciousness because they met someone in the workplace who shared with them about Krishna.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
So if that's the fruit of just executing our duty, our like sadhana, Sankirtan, we can just imagine if we go on Sankirtan like we went yesterday with purposefulness and giving people books, and how much effect that actually had in people's life.
What comes to me to like your question, and the response is like, okay, so maybe I'm not on the platform of like hearing and chanting 24 hours a day. So naturally I will do other things too. So it's better to do like things that like are useful, like accounting, than, I don't know, like something else, like work to the pub. So I think that Prabhupada also by his like personal example, like kind of like being active, like is giving us this like, yes, it's okay to like do book accounting and like be active in the world and be engaged. And then of course Prabhupada is this consciousness like 24 hours a day absorbed, and so everything is like really dovetailed. But then for us, it's like, okay, so maybe like everything is not like really dovetail, but at least like we are engaged and like gradually like more and more percentage dovetail. So like I wouldn't be able to like read and chant 24 hours a day, or 20 hours a day, or 8 hours a day. I don't have to decrease my actual.
Let's go for 2.
I like the verse that you choose. I don't know.
Yeah, that verse, because, you know, at the beginning of many programs, I'll talk about, you know, in my 40 plus years experience with personal growth seminars, two basic approaches to transformation: the blank slate approach and the diamond approach. You know, you'll probably all heard me say things like that. And so this verse is really the foundational inspiration for the diamond approach. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sadhika Bunoy Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karyayuda. That at the core we're not nothing, and we get to invent any possibility, which is at the verse saying that this love of God, love of Krishna, is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. I like how you expanded on all living entities. It's not sectarian. This love of God, love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities, and we're sleeping to that reality. Prabhupada sometimes makes the point. We can say, oh, we're disconnected from Krishna, but Prabhupada says, no, we're not. We're never disconnected. We just forget that we're connected. An important distinction. And so to remember, to wake up to our natural connection, this Shravanam Kirtan, this is the process in our private sadhana, and going to places like St. Augustine and sharing it with this is the wake up process. This is the wake up process. And I like how I shared that and in sharing with others, whether at our workplace or on the streets of St. Augustine, sharing with others, then our waking up multiplies 1,000 times.
I like the sentence in the purport that, like he said, that like we just like take the dust away, and then not for Krishna is naturally there. It's exciting.
Not something artificial.
Yeah,
from some
or not even like extra agenda, like he says, like there is like nothing like we have to do to get the love of Krishna, except like to get purified by the chanting and hearing. So like not like I don't have to force myself to like Krishna. It's there. Someday. Perhaps.
They call it sometimes brainwash, but actually it's a heart wash.
Heart wash.
Oh, you know, Prabhupada would sometimes in a playful yet serious mood go, they call it brainwashing. He goes, yes, your brains need to be washed. Yeah, but even with brainwashing, okay, so like that assumes that, that assumes that there's some like normal healthy state of the brain and consciousness, and whatever you're doing in this practicing of bhakti yoga, yes, that's not the normal healthy state. So if I were of healthy mind, what would I believe? What would I think? What would I do? And what's your basis for that? Like the assumption being that like you or who's ever doing the accusing has thought things out with clearer philosophy than the Vaishnavacharyas. So I'm just putting that out there. Like when they have their morning program, they're having such more astute, clear-minded, deep philosophical discussions than we are around Bhagavatam, around Caitanya Caritamrita.
I remember on day 6 of Jadvansana, I came there and I told you, David, I think this Hare Krishna is just like brainwashing. And you look at me with like such excitement and you said, it is. And it like really crashed my like, yeah, I guess like brainwashing can be a good thing.
I want to speak to this because I recently attended this 10-day Vipassana seminar.
Yeah.
And since then, my chanting practice has dwindled some, which I see as a temporary thing because I have had so much experiential confirmation of the power of purification of chanting Mahamantra. And also, Goenka, the teacher of Vipassana, was doing a lot of criticizing of other modalities of the spiritual path. And he was talking about how chanting is a sort of like unnatural thing. And that, I guess in Vipassana, it's like the body, regarding the body as it is, meaning simply observing the present physical sensations, the breath, and that is enough to purify the heart and the mind. And that he was, I guess it just spoke to maybe some latent skepticism that I had, that I wasn't even aware that I had.
It's like it's no accident you attracted those philosophies.
Right. Yeah. And I found that there was benefits to this technique, but also, I don't know, that I have already so much momentum, not a ton, but I was chanting like a certain number of rounds per day. And I guess him saying how it's sort of like ingesting like a foreign substance, like chanting, that it's not the natural kind of energy of you just being as you are, but it's adding this very potent sound vibration energy to you.
He's saying the opposite of this verse. This book specifically says, Sanjay commented that this chanting, it's not something external. That this chanting, it's the original energy, it's the original consciousness of the spirit soul. So, and opposite conception.
Yeah, which I get, like he's trying to persuade people to let go of what they've been doing and to follow his path. And but I guess it does speak to like, why are we all not then chanting naturally, or I don't know, like how, I guess I wonder, like, how do we know that this is the right sequence of words to be saying that's going to connect us to Godhead? And I guess I see, there's Shiva devotees, and there's different, I see it kind of like all rivers go back to the source. So there, if it works for someone, then it works for someone. And I guess these are just different paths. But I guess what I'm
right, because like whatever road I take, it'll take me to Los Angeles. Wait a second. Yeah, if I go south on the turnpike. Wait, no. I mean, it just doesn't sound like a grounded reality to me. That all paths lead to the same goal. I'm not saying which goal is better, but no, it's not like any road I take will take me to Los Angeles. Some roads might take me to Jacksonville or Toronto.
Mhm.
So I mean that sounds nice to say, but it's kind of specious. Specious means, oh, that sounds nice, but like personally, like, it doesn't seem that's the way life works.
It personally felt a little bit like the teachers who were teaching it seemed sort of, I don't know, I guess I evaluated their sincerity and their I wasn't really feeling that inspired or connected or grounded as I am through Krishna consciousness and associating with pure devotees or more pure.
The people enthusiastic to practice bhakti.
Yeah.
You're feeling you got value, and I appreciate how you say that, because you said like you appreciated the technique.
Mm-hmm.
You appreciate the technique, and I've not done much silent meditation. I did one day at Marie's like that, but I've not been to like a 10-day or something like that. But I associate with a lot of people who do a lot of that, and I can see it's a powerfully effective technique.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I can see, it's not from my experience, and I'm ready to be, my mind to be expanded. It's not a comprehensive lifestyle, and it's nothing like a complete philosophy. It's a very helpful technique to help one control the mind and detach from matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's nice. That's nice. And so you appreciated that at the same time, as far as like energetically, philosophically, as far as the energy of the association, you're feeling more, your soul's more attracted to the bhakti experience.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to invite people to share, if you will, about. Sorry, this feels like emotional. Like your own kind of enthusiasm, like because I'm not feeling really as connected in my life as I would like to.
It's touching some deep pain and sadness for you.
Yeah, I don't think I'm kind of this, but I guess yeah, I'm just not feeling as much faith or conviction like for the past few weeks as I have been building in my life before.
I get that hunger, that something missing inside. That's what got you up and in your car and here this morning. You're looking for in association for you to reconnect with your enthusiasm. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I appreciate very much your vulnerable sharing, your vulnerability, and you're kind of like you like your trust and faith in the process has been somewhat dampened in recent days. And there's something inside that's like, no, but I don't want that. So you're seeking sadhu sangha. You're seeking association that will rekindle that spark of devotion.
You have experienced that first. you have experience with the chanting, that there is a part of you that you reconnect with when you do the chanting. You have experience. It's not simply like something that artificially imposed on you, that you have your own experience. However, right now you're not connected with that experience. But you remember. There's a part of you that remember. And that's your consciousness is not completely covered. There's a part of you that remember. I have experienced what Ramachandra just read about. I know it's true. Because it's my own experience. It's something that's something imposed. I directly experience it.
Yeah, there must have been a reason why continually chanting or like strongly intended, committed to chanting more and more throughout like over a year.
There was a reason. Usually not something like blind follower of fanatic, dogmatic person. You like with your own experience, and through your own experience you came to conclusion, and then continue the experience, and more reinforce the same conclusion.
I also noticed when you described, when you quoted whoever was guiding it, that he said, he used the word potent, regarding the mantra. You said, he said like it's you're adding something, a mantra that's potent. So it feels like oxymoron. It's like, if it's potent, it doesn't. So he has appreciation for how potent this mantra is. So what's up with that? What's wrong with that? Like, if it's potent, then go for it. And if something is potent, that means it's like a medicine, right? It's a medicine. If you have medicine that's potent, then why avoid it? Because we are in a disease condition, after all. So, taking some measures to clear ourselves of the disease condition. The more potent, the better it is, right? If it's potent, then just like this story about in South India, this guru of
Ramanujacharya.
Yeah, he gave him a mantra, and he said, "I'm giving you this mantra to liberate you, but don't give it to anybody else." So, what did he do? He went on top of the roof and he was just giving it to everybody. And when the guru heard about this, he said, I said, "What have you done? I told you, now you're going to hell because, like, it was a condition, and if you give it to anybody else, you'll go to hell, whatever." And so Ramanujacharya said, "Yeah, if this is liberating everybody else, I don't mind, I'll go to hell, but let everybody be liberated." And when the guru heard this, he said, "Actually, you are the real guru." He just realized what a folly idea it was. And Ramanujacharya was the actual acharya, to really understand the essence of very simple and basic essence, that if you have something good, give it, share it, not hold it for yourself, or be like miserly about it.
Well, I'll share. Like, yeah. I mean, I very little advancement on the path. I will definitely say that. Well, I've been exposed to the mantra for 40 years, but like chanting japa since the summer of 1983. So we're getting about 37 years. I can say definitely my experience, whatever, relatively, however low it may be, but definitely each year of my life, I'm more and more enthusiastic to chant Hare Krishna and follow what Prabhupada gave us. And one of my great joys is I know that next year I'll be more enthusiastic than I am now. And so, I mean, so that's definitely my experience. That's definitely my experience. I'm not saying I experienced the ecstasy of, Tim chanting, but from wherever I'm at, each year I'm more and more enthusiastic to chant Hare Krishna and to chant more and to study Prabhupada's books more. So that's 100% my experience. As far as like, okay, like, so you have your experience, that this chanting Hare Krishna works, but then you have like, well, how do we know this is the sound? You have your experience. Even what you said about what Ginkgo said, like, okay, well, it's artificial, the self. Okay, so let's say one becomes completely self-realized through whatever, through praying to Jesus, through vipassana, through reading the newspaper, through whatever. One becomes completely self. Okay, so what are the natural activities in self-realization? When one's completely self-realized and God-realized, what does one do? Okay.
Nothing.
What's that?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. Well, thanks for your response. I think it's a bad response. No, really, I'm telling you, it's what
Coming to enlightenment.
Okay, we come to enlightenment, we're self-realized, and then we do nothing. That does not satisfy my intellect.
It's scary.
It's scary. It's crazy making. It's crazy making. And so what's a lot more satisfying is we sing and chant the glories of God. And we act in service to God. That's the activities of the soul in enlightenment and self-realization. So and say, okay, so we get that completeness here in this bhakti tradition like that. And sure, there's so many mantras coming from the Vedas. And the Vedas there are so many mantras that have different effects, different potencies. I'm just coming from like your own experience, my own experience, logic, and then Vedic authority. Idi Shodashakam Nam Nam Kalikamasa Nashanam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This particular mantra is especially recommended all the time, but especially for this age, for self-realization and develop and for awakening our natural love of God, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So what I'm presenting is whether we look at our own experience, including yours, or logic, or Vedic authority, the conclusions are consistent. And we can go into more why the Vedas say this mantra, but just from those three avenues of realizing knowledge, they're all consistent: experience, logic, and Vedic authority. All right, Krishna.
I like.
Something else I heard from you is like before the Vipassana experience, when you chant, you experience the connection with your heart, and then after that, when you chant, you don't experience much. It's like kind of increasing to doubt of like maybe what he said is true because now I don't experience the connection. Mm-hmm. So in my experience of chanting, I have a lot of up and downs. Mm-hmm. And I accept the doubts like in different ways, like a test, like Krishna, like because it's like the Bhakti Yoga is really all about like learning to please Krishna. And so I'm thinking like, okay, if I chant and I like it, how much I do it for Krishna and how much I do it for like, oh, I will feel better. But when I'm at the place of my life and I really don't feel like it, or I even sometimes feel worse after chanting. So then I'm like, yeah, so this is an opportunity to like show my sincerity that like I want to do it anyway because I'm committed. And then like it's like this, but the average thing is going up. Like I can experience that too. So it goes on to relate to your like down. You have so many downs.
I have another kind of testimonial that the mantra actually so, I mean, I'm talking about myself, it's like so internalized. It's been so internalized that even when I'm not chanting outwardly, it's just always there. And it's just like playing, it's on. And that's pretty, kind of like it feels so natural. It's like it's in the blood. I mean, it's already like going in the system, and it's there, available. I can connect more. I can kind of withdraw, but it's present. And so I realize the more I chant, the more I can stop, chanting. It's like it's almost addictive. And I mean, one thing is like japa, and another thing is like the kirtan. It has different kind of expression, but it's powerful. It's like so. It comes from the heart, and it's like completely engaging, and it's alive. It's connection with Krishna. Krishna is our source. And he gives us everything. Right? It's the answer. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Dominique?
Hare Krishna.
Dominique.
I wanted to share with you, Stephanie, something. When I first contemplated having a relationship with God, which was actually like the last day of a Sapatov advanced seminar, the first advanced seminar I took, I ended up like sitting next to this man, Ganesham. I had asked I asked a question of Mother Malini about how something like transpired in the seminar, and who like came up with that idea. I was so fascinated by something that happened, and she said something like that she prayed and that God revealed it to her, and I was like, oh, you have a relationship with God. And I asked what it was like, and her answer made me cry. And then it was like time to get up and go, but then Ganesham was sitting there, and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying so much. And he knew exactly what I was going through, and I didn't know. And he said that the idea of having a relationship with God, because that's what I was crying about. I was like, this is really touching me, but I don't have a relationship with God. But he knew that it's very like vulnerable, and it's easier to have like an impersonal practice, because when you're like surrendering to another person, it brings up more emotion, and it's more like there's more risk, and I think it's like more transformative. And I think that real genuine chanting of God's names is it's uncomfortable, and I resist it myself. I resist it often. And the thing that helps me continue going is association with other devotees who are sincerely endeavoring to practice bhakti yoga, and also associating with Srila Prabhupada and hearing from him. The association, like despite how much I resist it and I'm uncomfortable, because I have to transform my whole consciousness into a servant of someone else and trust this other person 100% with everything in my life is like in the hands of God, really. And it's just so much surrender. So it's just a lot of a lot of transformation there, because I'm not conditioned that way. So it's just a lot of movement, to really cultivate bhakti yoga and genuine loving service to God. But the association really like helps me keep going and have faith. And yeah, that's all. I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. Thanks for expressing.
So I'll share that Dominique worked with Dear Govinda on the Power of Bhakti. And so that's next weekend that they're doing the book to the community. And so I joined the home programs with Dominique probably the second or third time you started, and was really consistent. And I found that gave me strength. It's because I really connected with this intimate gathering of honest, sincere souls, and
then Mother Melanie with her singing, that was the song in my heart. I didn't know it. And so just singing the Maha Mantra the first time is why I sing the Maha Mantra on my japa beads, because I'm just so connected with singing, and I know how much you love to sing. So I invite you to sing your japa. And I just, yeah, the association, having this family, my family calls it my church family. And so, and I've never really had a church family before. So mine was a Catholic faith that I was raised in, and it was basically get there Friday night so that you have your weekend. And it was just a commitment to get out. And this is more, I get to come to my church family, and I get to be present and reconnect with God and with others who want to love of God. And it's so safe and powerful and beautiful. And the power song is just so amazing. The song of God.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks for sharing.
Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai Gora.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Jai. Hare Krishna.